Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to The Breakdown. I'm your host, Sandra Babu-Boateng. And listen up, guys. We need to talk. Imagine suing your parents for sending you back to Africa. Like getting a lawyer, taking them to court, the whole thing. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, a 14-year-old Ghanaian-British boy just did exactly that. He dragged his parents to court for sending him to Ghana for boarding school against his will. I wish I was making this up. And what's even more shocking is he did all of this while stuck in Ghana. Well, we're going to break it down today. But before we do, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss another conversation like the one we're about to have. So if you're African and grew up in the diaspora, you know the threat, the ultimate punishment. It's worse than grounding, worse than getting your phone taken away. The one-way ticket back to Africa. That's right. For me, that moment, that threat came when I was in the 8th grade, about 13. And my dad walked in on me reading an anatomy book. And no, I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean, I was literally studying an anatomy textbook for science class, flipping through the pages with, diagrams of all the body parts. I mean, American textbooks can be quite graphic. So let's just say it laid everything to bear. My dad walked in, saw what I was looking at, and lost it. Next thing I know, he's telling me to pack my bags because I'm on the next flight to Accra. I was hysterical, of course, begging, pleading, promising never to look at a biology book ever again. Of course, later I realized that he was just bluffing, but at that time, listen, the fear of that one-way ticket was real. And I know I wasn't alone in this. We've all experienced it at least once. If your African parents never hit you with the "I'll send you back home" threat, you, my friend, are the exception to the rule. But could you actually imagine suing your parents if they did that to you? I mean, the balls you would need to have to even think of something like that. So let's break it down. According to the BBC, yes, this story actually made it in the BBC and the New York Times. This kid was living in the UK, but his parents started noticing some questionable behavior, skipping school, getting into fights, hanging out with the wrong crowd. And in true African parent fashion, they were like, "Not under my roof." Apparently, the behavior was so bad that the parents said they feared for his life in London. In a statement, his mother said sending him to Ghana was, and I quote, "not a punishment, but a measure to protect him." She then referenced another African teen who was just recently murdered back in January and said that was her worst nightmare as a parent. She didn't want her son to end up like that. The parents also noted that he met 11 of the points on a checklist produced by the children's charity NSPCC to indicate whether a child might have joined a gang or was being criminally exploited. That included being absent from school, having unexplained money, buying new things, and carrying weapons. So it sounds like this kid was a little bit of trouble, right? Not just at home, but also at school, where they also claimed that they had suspicions about him engaging in criminal activities. So the boy's parent came up with the perfect plan to essentially save their son. We're going to take him to Ghana. But with a kid like that, no way you can unveil your plan, right? He actually told the court that had he known he was being sent to boarding school, and I quote, "there would have been no way I would have agreed to it." So the parent came up with a master plan and told him they were going on a trip to Ghana, right? Said they were visiting a sick relative. But then the plot twists. Turns out this was no vacation. As soon as they landed, they enrolled him in a strict Ghanaian boarding school. Probably no iPads, no Wi-Fi, no TikToks, just books, discipline, and morning assemblies that start at 5 a.m. Now, instead of accepting his fate and just learning how to make his bed with military precision, this little boy had other plans. He somehow reached out to the British consulate in Ghana and filed a legal case against his own parents for quote unquote abandonment and tried to force them to bring him back to the UK. When I tell you, my ancestors just, what? Now, let's pause for a second and reflect on just how much times have changed. Because if you even thought about suing your parents back in the day, you wouldn't make it to the court. First of all, suing a parent, that is just not an African thing, right? I mean, our parents have been making life-altering decisions for us since birth with zero consultation. They changed our names at baptism, switched our schools mid-year, sent us to live with relatives, that uncle, that aunt for no reason. And if you dare to ask why, they hit you with, "Do you pay your rent?" question. So this kid taking his own parents to court over boarding school, quite unprecedented. So how did the UK court handle this? Well, thankfully, the judge ruled in favor of the parents. And let me tell you, if they had ruled in favor of the kid, we would have entered a new era of parental panic. Imagine the chaos if kids suddenly had legal backing to challenge African parents' decisions. Parents would be whispering before giving punishments. We'd see statements like, "Go to your room." If you agree, of course. "You're grounded. But if you would like to negotiate, we can discuss the terms." And then you have some parents, like my parents, who would say, "I will do it. Let them come and take me to prison today. I don't care." I mean, it would have set the worst precedent, right? But on a serious note, why did the parents do this? It wasn't about being mean or controlling. They saw their son slipping into dangerous territory, skipping school, hanging out with gangs, getting into trouble. And honestly, this is not uncommon, right? A lot of African parents in the diaspora send their kids back home to get discipline and structure. They see it as a way to protect them from bad influences in the West. And let's be real. Boarding school in Ghana is not a death sentence, is it? It's not like they sent him to the wilderness to fend for himself, although he seems to feel differently. You know what he said about this school? This is what he said. In a written statement to the court, he said, and I quote, "I feel like I am living in hell. I really do not think I deserve this, and I want to come home, back to England as soon as possible." Now, to his credit, a little bit, he was born in the UK and had lived there since birth, right? So I can see how an abrupt move like that can be a culture shock. But to say he's living in hell? Come on. But he goes on, there's more. He said, and I quote again, he said he could also barely understand what was going on and I would get into fights. So he was, quote, so scared and desperate that he emailed the British High Commission in Accra, as well as contacting the charity children and family across borders who apparently put him in touch with lawyers at the International Family Law Group. I mean, this kid was very busy. He went on to write, "I am from London, England, and I want to go back home. I'm begging to go back to my old school." According to him, he felt the Ghanaian classes were not as challenging as those in his English school. He wrote in the letter, "I want to have an education and grow up like a normal person. I feel like my brain is hurt here. I feel like now I am dumber than people I used to be smarter than." This kid. I mean, is he serious? It's really hard not to see the sense of entitlement here, right? Which validates why he needs to be in Ghana, learning some real discipline and culture and how to talk and respect. But I must say, I applaud him for being able to orchestrate this whole thing while stuck in Ghana. Says a lot about his grit and determination, and I wish he would apply it in other areas of his life rather than going after his parents in this way. But let's flip the script around for a second. I want to ask all the parents, Imagine your child took you to court over anything. What would you do? Imagine your kid refuses to eat vegetables. Lawsuit. Bam. You won't buy them the iPhone. Lawsuit. You told them they could go to a sleepover. Bam. You're sued. I mean, I'm joking here, but where does it end? Parents, would you ever recover from that level of betrayal? And for my fellow Africans, if you had sued your parents as a child for anything, any reason, please comment below what your ghost would say right now, because that would probably be the only thing alive, right? Your ghost. All right, my people. Well, this was an interesting episode. And that's it for today's breakdown. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, and let's have this conversation. If you want to share a story with me to cover here on the breakdown, please reach out to us at contact@panagenius.com. Thanks for staying with me. Until next time, don't go suing your parents, all right? Take care.